This is Jack Moelmann, and today is July 5th, 2013. We're at the JW Marriott Hotel in Atlanta, Georgia, and we have a real thrill for you, and that's to have David Gray, who's an upcoming, he's not upcoming, he's almost surpassed everybody playing the organ. He put on a concert yesterday that was just above and beyond imagination. And I'm very proud to be able to interview him today while we're here as part of the convention for 2013. Wow, let's see, just by way of an introduction here, the first time we ever met David was in 2005 when he was entered the Young Organist competition. He was in the junior category. How old are you now?
I'm 22, 23 in 8 days.
20, coming up on 23, and when you first entered the competition in 2005, you were?
14.
14. And he became the overall winner. He didn't even wait to enter the other categories. He took it all right then. And then he was at one other convention, that's 2007, when he played somewhere.
New York.
Yeah, and just the other day, yesterday, he played a stupendous concert at the Alabama Theater in Birmingham. So anyway, welcome, David.
Thank you. It's great to be here. It's very nice to join the long list of people who you've done interviews with so far.
Now, when did you first get interested or start in music?
I think I would have been about 4 years old, or maybe 5. My grandma had a piano, and every time I visited her house, I just ran up and tinkered away and picked out the notes and learned what they all did. I think my first piano lessons followed when I was about 5 or 6 years old. I don't remember exactly.
We should probably say that David's from Scotland.
I am from Scotland, so sorry if you're having a hard time understanding.
No, there are very few, if any, we've ever had from Scotland. We have them from England. But
well, yeah, I have actually made an effort to tone down the accent. You know, actually a lot of people say I sound American when I'm in Europe.
Okay.
Which maybe it's rubbed off. Right?
So, you were fooling around with the piano and all that, and
yeah.
then what happened?
Well, I started with a lady called Anne Crawford in Glasgow, who was excellent for young children. And I think I studied with her for about 8 years until I was about 12 or 13. And then I went to a specialist music school in Edinburgh. It was called St Mary's Music School. And they were connected with the cathedral there. They trained the choristers and they also trained instrumentalists. This was a very small school, about 70 pupils, I think, and it was a boarding school. All the students there were musicians, and it was a very intensive kind of musical training mixed with academic. They really had their own system there, and so this was kind of a completely different world I just went into, and that's when I really started concentrating on music. And again, I had a really great teacher there who was a very fine pianist as well, called Richard Beecham. And it was around that time I started studying classical organ. I mean, from the age of 6, I'd gone into the local church and again just messed around and taught myself how to bash away on the pedals and the keyboards and whatnot. So I kind of knew how to play, but I was 13 or 14 when I had my first classical organ lessons. That lasted for only about 3 years, I think. I did 1 or 2 exams, like the grade 8 exam in Britain. But it didn't last very long, whereas the piano always stuck. But there was a period of time when I thought I wanted to be an organ scholar in a cathedral somewhere. Or at a university like Cambridge or Oxford. I think I was about 16 when I watched the DVD The Art of Piano and suddenly saw the light and remembered, actually I'm a pianist at heart and I'm going to stick with that. So it was, yeah, I mean, my path always changed. It was kind of a rocky road through my formative years.
Well, so where did the theater organ come into this?
Yeah, theatre organ started, well, my first experience of seeing one was when I was about 11 or 10. I went to see a local organist I knew play the Wurlitzer organ they had in Glasgow. And I was blown away by this because I used to play all my favourite tunes from the films and cartoons on the church organ, and some people thought this wasn't appropriate. And here was this instrument that was built for light music and all this fun stuff. And that was just amazing to me. But it was about another 2 or 3 years before I plucked up the courage and asked to go and see the Wurlitzer organ and have a go. I was actually taken out to see a Compton organ in Glasgow. It was a 3-manual 8-rank instrument. Probably the loudest 8-rank organ I've ever heard in my life. But regardless of that, I think it was a man called Duncan Sinclair who's with the Scottish organ club, and I think he was rather sceptical and thought, oh right, here's some dumb kid that wants to go for an organ or something. But obviously I took to it quite quickly, and he was very pleased. So he really started me off from the age of 13 and showed me all the things I needed to know about playing the instrument, and it was actually a really excellent musical influence because he was a classical organist as well. And I was so pleased that it was someone like him who would start me off on theatre organ, because he could play himself and he's a really, really good musician. And he has excellent taste and showed me what I consider the right paths to take, even though it was a very broad spectrum. He showed me so many different organ approaches and was always a really excellent mentor. And I stuck with him, constantly playing for him for maybe 4 years or something.
Now, you announced at the concert that you just graduated.
Yeah, I was at the Royal Academy of Music in London from 2008, studying piano performance on an undergraduate degree.
And that's what you have now?
That's what I have now.
In piano performance?
That's right.
Well, you certainly played up a storm yesterday. What was that you played?
Oh, that's that nuts piece. It's called, the whole work is called Concerto for Solo Piano by Charles Valentin Alcan. It's an obscure French composer. But that was just the last movement I played, which
yeah, because how long is the thing?
The whole thing is about 52 minutes.
And you have to play that?
I did already in my final exam.
I mean, end to end without stopping?
End to end without stop, yeah. Well, the whole exam was an hour long, so I added 8 minutes of really easygoing French Baroque music. But yeah, that's a really difficult thing to get through. But the last movement is good fun to play.
Well, you were all over the keyboard.
Yeah, but the worst thing was, I don't know how I managed, because there was a downlight and it cast a shadow on the keyboard, and there was only blackness between the black keys, so there was no point of reference, and I was basically almost blind playing this piece. It was terrifying. So I just kind of threw my hands at the keyboard and hoped for the best.
Well, it came out flawlessly as far as we were concerned.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just good fun. There's so many notes that if I take a wrong turn, it's kind of difficult to tell, actually.
Yeah, well, that's true. Well, listen, you've given, how many concerts do you think you've given around?
How many concerts have I given? Oh, I've never actually thought. Never thought to count. Well, I remember about 6 years ago, I counted that I'd done 25 theatre organ performances, but I don't know how many I've done since.
But they've all been over in the UK or something.
Most of them, yeah. But I really actually have been on and off with theatre organ in the last since I played the 2007 convention. Piano has often really required all of my attention, and so for a period of even 2 years I've just completely dropped the organ and barely touched it. But then I brought it up again for things like an Australia tour in New Zealand. I did that 3 years ago, and that was great fun. And I came away from that very inspired. But I always kept the organ on the back burner, but I played actually even recently very little concerts. I think I played 4 organ concerts in the last year.
So what are you going to do now? Are you going
What am I going to do?
Is this going to be, what are you going to focus on?
Well, I mean, actually, for the next few months, the main focus is theatre organ, because I have another Australia, America tour and West Coast, Australia, New Zealand tour and the West Coast of the US. But then as soon as I get back to London in September, I go straight back into a master's degree, again at the Royal Academy. So
in
that's
piano.
Piano, same old thing.
Well, let me ask you this. Your professors and whoever, what do they think of you playing the organ? Have they heard you?
Some of them have heard me. There's one or two. There's actually a professor in the academy who deals with this thing called keyboard skills, and it's basically the art of sitting at a piano and transcribing, transposing things, improvising, harmonizing, and of course these are all the things that a theatre organist, these qualities has. That's what theatre organists do. So I was really good at this, and he says, well, how come you're so good at this, better than all the other pianists? I said, well, I do it all the time. It's, I do this theatre organ thing. And I showed him a YouTube clip of me playing something, and he thought this was awesome, and he started showing everybody, and they called me Wurlitzer Madman or something.
Really?
I think all the professors, they think it's amusing, it's a nice thing to do. Nobody looks down on it. But
Because you're probably one of the few, if the only one, music student that plays the piano that also plays the organ, any kind of organ.
Well, there are probably a lot of crossover classical organists and pianists. I'm sure that happens a lot, but I can't think of any active theatre organists that are currently a piano student. Maybe I am the only one that does that.
Well, there are a few, and not very many that are equally talented as you are in both the piano and the organ. Have you ever gotten into one of these situations like some of our artists do, where they find a digital recording capability on the organ and they record an orchestral score and play the rest of it on the piano?
Yeah, well, I've never done that. I remember I was playing a concert and we had a digital piano, and 10 minutes before I just messed around with some piece like 12th Street Rag and recorded some dumb improvisation and played along with it on the organ, which went down a storm. They loved that. I just took the mickey. That was good fun, but I'm not sure I want to take that particularly seriously, because it's so difficult to really make a piece of music convincing if you have to count absolutely in order to get it to work.
Get it together.
It's much nicer to play with another person.
Well, let's talk the piano a minute. What do you want to do with the piano? I mean,
What do I want to do with the piano? Well, I mean, I'm studying mainly solo and chamber music performance, which is what I would ideally love to go forward doing. It's not an easy profession to get into, certainly.
it's what now?
It's not an easy profession.
No. What did you call the kind of
Well, solo piano or chamber music performance.
chamber
music is just playing with other people.
Oh, okay.
Ensembles.
You want to
or
be a
duos.
soloist with a symphony orchestra or anything like that?
Sure. I mean, well, I say sure so lightly. I mean, yeah, that's kind of the aim of most piano students, actually. Well, some. That's what I'm looking at, certainly. I mean, it's what I spend all my time working on, just
Okay,
solo music.
Is that going to be your livelihood, or are you going to be like some that have some other job that's not musically related?
I don't imagine I would ever have a job that's not music related. Whether my sole income is through performance, I can't say that. I don't know what's going to happen. It's when you're studying music and you take the plunge. It's not exactly a certain thing. It's kind of unsettling, really. You're not 100% sure what you're going to do or where you're going to go. I do enjoy teaching, actually, a lot, but I wouldn't want to turn into a last resort teacher, but more do it because I really have a passion for that kind of thing.
What? Okay, just we're going to bring this to an end soon here, but take the theater organ. Do you have any place in the United States, because that's where we seem to know most of the organs, that you would really love to play and have never, and would figure it a life's ambition to even have the opportunity to play it?
Well, there are plenty of instruments that I'm desperate to see. There's so many good instruments in the US. One that I always did want to play is Dickinson. I do have a booking there for next June, so I'm really excited about that. There are lots of organs. I mean, the Sanfilippo instrument, I've never played it. I'd love to. Or Shea's Buffalo. Berkeley Community Center, and all the East Coast organs,
Mhm.
West Coast organs, like in the Bay Area. I love those instruments. It would be really nice to be able to go and see
So
them.
any of them are,
Yeah.
you'd love any of them?
There's so many great ones. Yeah, I've seen a lot, but there's still more to see. So I can't really choose a favorite. I just want to see them all.
Okay, last question. We don't know who's ever watching these recordings. What would be your advice to some young person that may be thinking about getting into music, be a piano, organ, or whatever?
That's I suppose it's a very broad kind of subject, because each part of music is so different and so specific. Theatre organ, I would say that it's probably the most open and welcoming musical community or industry you could ever imagine. Everybody's so friendly, and they're really supportive and encouraging, because you know the organ world really wants young people to do well and support them in the future. So I would say that that's a real bonus. But a piece of advice I would give is the first piece of advice Duncan Sinclair ever gave me, which was always do your very best at theatre organ. You know, it's very easy to fake music on the organ and play it all right, because maybe people will accept that. But I think to move it forward, you really must give it as much dedication as you can. But at the same time, it's always just a hobby, because it's so rare to find someone who can make a living through playing theatre organ. So it's a really hard balance to strike. You kind of have to work extra hard, almost. As I said, enjoy it. It's wonderful. It's so much fun. It just makes my life so much more interesting. But even though I want to do my very best, I do always remember that I've got to have something else to rely on, something else to do, something else to support myself. Never assume that it's going to be the number one. I mean, it might be the thing I enjoy most, but it's never going to be my number one money earner. So don't put all my eggs in that one basket.
Well, I'll tell you, at your age, you're a brilliant musician. I mean, just brilliant. Your interpretation, your technique, and everything else. And I admire you, and everybody that heard you yesterday was thrilled. We're looking for big things from you in the future.
Well,
so we'll sort of close this out by saying we've had David Gray here from Scotland. Jack Moelmann speaking the 5th of July 2013 here in Atlanta, Georgia. And David, best wishes, and we'll see you again soon, I hope.
I hope, yeah. Thanks, Jack.